Welcome to Trust the Journey. I'm Melanie Curtis.
And I'm Jason Moledzki.
Our mission is to live, laugh, love, and learn together with you, fam.
We're here to create conscious connections, to grow, and to contribute to our practice of openness, honesty, vulnerability, humility, and trusting the entire journey.
Absolutely. If you want to find us on the internet, we are at trustthejourney.today. That is our website, our Instagram. Please, if you get value from the show, please like it, give us 5 stars, share it with your friends, subscribe, all those things. If you really want to dive in more deeply with us, I would say join us in the Trust the Journey family. It is also a way to financially support the show and all of our patrons. We love you, and we couldn't do this without you. It makes the show possible. Thank you to everyone who donates. And that gets you into the family, like we said. So that's a private Facebook group. Donate on Patreon in any amount. Just go to the website and click on the button for Patreon, and it'll take you there.
Yeah. And we'd also like to send some thanks out to Kimberly Joy Voice, our wonderful audio podcast editor. She does all our posting and managing, takes care of everything for us. She's a huge asset on the team, so we're incredibly grateful for her. That gratitude goes out to everybody who supports the program. So thank you to Kimberly, and thank you to all of our patrons, and thank you to all of our listeners. If you want to reach Kimberly, you get her at KimberlyJoyVoice at Gmail. KimberlyJoyVoice.com.
Yes. Websiting it up. I like it. Official. Yeah, if you want to connect with Jay directly, he's on Instagram at jason_moledzki, and anything and everything for me can be found at melaniecurtis.com. The other thing that we want to share is that we are open for sponsorship relationships, for advertising relationships now. We are starting to figure out what those types of partnerships are going to look like. To be clear, anyone we partner with will be someone who has values aligned with our show and our mission here with the show. And we want to make that advertising sponsorship space one that also adds value to the community that we have here. So anybody who thinks they maybe have something that's aligned, reach out. But the best way to reach us is probably DMing us on Instagram. So trustthejourney.today on Instagram. And we can explore that and see where it goes. But today we're diving in and we are talking about basically stories, the quintessential no shit, there I was.
And this is a topic request from Eli, new dog from our Patreon community from Trust the Journey family. So Thank you so much for the request for the topic. No shit, there I was. Mel.
Classic.
Yeah.
I'm like dying to hear what you would start with. I have like a whole list over here, and it literally doesn't even scratch the surface of things that I think all of us could share in this sort of lane. But yeah, I have a lot of different stories. I mean, do you want to start? Do you want me to throw one out there?
I can. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. The fact that I'm still alive right now is just pure luck. I would completely look to the destiny, fate, the higher power, the powers that be. Like, why am I still alive? Otherwise, I should be completely just dead 100 times over for so many different reasons. So I had actually been thinking about some of these recently because of my own writings in my book, and the topic came up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could totally think of a couple that are just, especially when I go back into earlier parts of my life when I was younger and I really didn't have the best decision-making skills, or I was coming from a place of pain or anger and like acting out and doing things that weren't really necessarily good for me or others. So one time I was in a laundry room hiding in a closet because a certain somebody's partner that I didn't know had a partner had returned to the house and was stomping through the house looking for said person.
Oh my!
I have no clue. Okay, I met a girl. at a strip bar. I went home with her. The next thing I know, she's like, hide, 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 you know? And I'm like, what? You know? And there I am, like, I'm 18. I don't know what's going on. I don't really know this girl. I should never have gone home with her. Totally toxic situation. I'm in the laundry room hiding behind a furnace, like trying not to breathe because there's an irate, angry man like marching around looking to cause violence and harm upon me who had no clue that this was even a thing. Now, I'll be honest, this isn't the only time this has happened.
Oh my God. That's so ridiculous.
So the other time that this happened it was justified. It was due.
Oh, gosh.
I did not make good decisions when I was young. I had a lot of stuff going on. I had an affair, lasted about a year with a married woman. It went on for about a year. Yep. And at that time, we both knew what we were doing. We were both making informed bad decisions, and we'd been having that affair for about a year. And what do you know? The first time I ever went to her house, never been to her house before. First time I went to her house, husband's on the other side of the country. Now, this is not, no, I can't speak towards myself being a good person. When I speak towards this, I have to say I've made some bad decisions.
Yeah.
And
haven't we all?
These are not things that I would repeat. You know? So the no shit there I was comes a lot along with hey, there's a lesson to be learned here.
Yeah, for sure.
Even though it's worth a laugh and a smile. So her husband's on the other side of the continent on a work trip. And so maybe it's safe to come over and have a visit, a conjugal visit.
Oh, God.
And the typical pattern was for things to get pretty heated pretty quickly. And so, there's boots. I had driven my motorcycle. My cowboy boots are at the front door. My motorcycle's parked in the driveway across the street. I've left my leather jacket laying on somewhere down near the front door. Then shirts and clothes have come off and the couch. And then
it's like the movies.
Totally. Yeah. Exactly like the movies. Pants are on the stairway on the way up the stairs to the bedroom, right? Pants, underwear. The next thing you know, the clothes are strewn through the entire house. And I remember laying in bed in the aftermath of said experience and all of a sudden hearing this sound. And it was just like, and I'm like, that's a weird sound.
Oh my gosh.
I'm laying there next to her and I'm like, that sounds like a garage door opener. And she perked to attention and leapt out of the bed, like just poof out of the bed across the room and like grabbing things along the way. And I'm like, just that, like, you gotta be kidding me. Oh shit, like tumbling down the stairs, out of the bedroom, down the stairs, down the hall, picking up things along the way. And I look and I'm like, my stuff is everywhere. I snatch a jacket. I got one boot. I thought I got my shirt. I'm heading out the back door. Totally the back door, man. I'm naked. I haven't got any clothes on. So I'm totally naked. I'm heading out the back door. And I tumble and there's a blinds and I hit the blinds and now the blinds are like, and it's a sliding glass door. These are townhouses. So it's a row of townhouses. They're all connected. So the yards are all interconnected. You only have like a 6-foot fence dividing up the space between each place. So I'm out the back door, my jacket, my boots, one boot, a leather jacket, my wallet explodes all over the ground. I have a blouse, her blouse, not mine, one sock. So here I am. It's Canada. It's not summertime. It's like spring or fall, shoulder season. I've got a boot, pair of jeans, a white blouse, my leather jacket, one sock.
Oh my God.
No, I don't have my shirt. I don't have my other sock. I'm like collecting all my wallet. I'm totally naked out in the yard. And she's already like dove for the couch to like pretends he's like, there's nothing going on.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, just the worst of it. Like, I'm in the yard. Now I'm just in the yard with like an armful of stuff and I'm butt naked out there just going, oh shit. There I was. I'm not proud.
Oh my God, that is hysterical. And
I'm not proud.
The lesson, of course. Of course. I mean, did you get caught?
No.
Okay. So
believe it or not, no.
Wow.
Like the relationship, that was it. Like that was
that was the end of it.
End point of this. Like, this is wrong. You know, it was
we all have experiences where we definitely would have chosen differently when in our current state of consciousness and our current state of understanding what is kind and in integrity and all those things. So I think hearing that story, we can put that compassionate lens on it for you, knowing that you are not the same person as you were then. Just to be gentle with you.
Well, thanks, but you don't have to. I got away pretty easy, you know, and if I really assess the situation, I didn't really like pay my dues for making bad decisions in that relationship. It wasn't a kind thing to do.
Yeah.
It's a pretty funny story.
Yeah.
It's about it, you know, and I'm just lucky. Like I said, I'm lucky. I'm rather than that guy didn't catch me or kill me in either one of those scenarios.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Oh my God. Well, this is so funny is, of course, in prepping for this episode, I'm like just starting to jot down some stuff. I'm like, of course, there's the, you know, various physical skydiving stories and this and that. And then there's some other sort of emotional stories where I'm like, okay, cool. There's like the other stuff. And I literally, same thing. I wrote down a sex story where I was like, because I mean, there's some comedy in that. And so for me, it was not the same thing. It's definitely a more positively slanted story. I have no shame whatsoever about this story in any way. In fact, I love it because it was totally fun, full of aliveness. It was super hot. And it was like, basically, long story short, I'm not going to say any names or anything, but I reconnected with this person in my life, and we were getting to know each other again. But there was this electricity when we first met back, like, I don't know, 15 years ago or something like that. Where this like totally notable sexual energy, and I just was very attracted to this person, and vice versa. It was like this cool thing, but we never ever connected on that level. We just never ever went there. And so anyway, years later, we connect apart, sort of over the internet, online, and just are starting to talk and getting to know each other in a way that we didn't over the early years, by the way. So anyway, very long story short, he finally comes to visit me, and I am like, no holds barred, where I'm like, let's go. We've waited 15 years for this. It's happening. And we totally went for it and completely broke the bed. Like, it broke and it fell to the floor.
Yes.
It fell to the floor. And it was hilarious. And I was like, whatever. I could care less. It was one of those moments, though, when you were like, did that literally just happen? And it wasn't like right away. It was sort of after after we kind of were already, in the experience. But it was really funny when we just like thumped to the floor and like it completely broke. And it was the perfect punctuation to this like 15-year buildup of like tension and amazing energy and sex. And it was just like awesome. So that was the sex story that came to mind first for me in terms of shit, there I was.
That is awesome. I had a friend tell me a similar story recently, and I congratulated them on that. I'm like, that takes a lot of work, and it is that kind of like, it's the punctuation mark on the end of the sentence, right? That just tells the whole story. The bed collapses. I love that. That's awesome.
It was the perfect punctuation because it was really funny, and it was like, it's such a fascinating experience, that experience. And it doesn't always have to be sexual, but when there's energy in a connection, you have energy in a connection, whether it is however it might be, but the sexual energy is just really powerful and really notable and really fun to play with, really amazing and enlivening to be in and to be with when it's mutual and it's on. So I'm sure everyone listening understands, and maybe not, but I would hope. And so to then have a punctuation point of something like that, where it brings it back to rigorous humanity, where then we go to Lowe's and get a freaking different piece of hardware to rebuild the base of my bed. It was just hilarious.
That's fantastic.
That wasn't going to be the story I was going to lead with, by the way. I brought it up because you went there first.
I couldn't help myself, it's the irony of, I'm sure every single one of us and every listener out there can relate to some of these sex stories of the things. It's so awkward, and there's so many weird things that happen, funny. And it's so awesome. And it's this whole big jumble of everything. And, there's just the worst experiences and the best experiences and everything in between. And overall, 100%. It's pretty comical. I mean, the whole thing is just pretty comical and gross, so it's pretty funny just to begin with.
It's so funny. Oh, I'm crying. That's so hilarious. Tears of hilarity. Oh my God. But, immediately, of course, the obvious no shit there I was stories, I think, come in, the skydiving and the physical sport, I'm in a potentially dangerous situation, but I get out of it by the skin of my teeth or not. You know what I mean? Those stories, I think, immediately come to mind. I don't know if you want to start with one of those. I can certainly share the one that I wrote down.
Well, I'm happy to share. Of course, having a career as a skydiver and a base jumper, and especially somebody who's taken a lot of high risk endeavors in those areas, I've got a list of times where lost count of the total number of times that come down to the wire, but I can think of a couple moments specifically. It's a really interesting topic because it goes into some deeper things. My friend Chris McDougall, Dukes, he coined a term a number of years ago for when you're flying a wingsuit and you're not getting the pilot chute, and he called it a no pull find. So you're trying to get the pilot chute, trying to get the pilot chute, trying to get the pilot chute kind of thing, and just not getting to it. And the term was coined in relationship to the older wingsuits were actually much harder to get to the handles. The rigs were shorter, which meant your elbow had to be up higher, and the suit was cut with the elbow down lower. And when you moved your arm back, the wing folded over the handle, so it covered. Yeah. When you move your hand back, the wing covers the handle. So it's really bad engineering. And since then, things have gotten much better. The suits are shaped differently, and those rigs are cut differently and fit, and we learn better techniques. But I can think of a few times, so I've had these no pull finds 3 times where I've gone to get the handle and I get a handful of wing instead of the pilot chute handle. And I go, okay, take a second, regroup, pull again, go back, get another handful of nylon instead of the pilot chute handle. I go, okay, that was 2 times. And now these are not skydiving. These are base jumping. The first attempt to pull would have been in the neighborhood of 600 feet above the ground. The second would be around 5 or 4. The third attempt, we're getting down to about 300 feet. And at that point in those older wingsuits, you're about 1 to 2 seconds away from impact. So specifically, I had done a jump into the Grand Canyon. Mm-hmm. And I flew from a aircraft and did proximity flying down the walls of the canyon. This was 15 years ago.
Yep.
And nobody's ever seen this video. It never got really published. So big, huge old camera on my belly, like big HD tape camera hanging off a huge belly mount, old school gear, proximity flying down into the canyon. And I'd done this thing I was super excited about because this is the kind of dumb stuff that excited me back then. The top of the canyon is super flat and the edge is super steep. So like going right past the edge really close and following the sheer walls down the canyon. And then all good. I'd flown the line that I imagined flying. But when I got to pull, I got nylon. And then this is where it gets deep because I could see the spot where I was going to hit.
Oh,
you know,
my gosh.
I can see the spot and I know where it is. And I know this is the last chance, you know, like it's time. So time is a relative thing, right? Like time is not a linear experience. We perceive time. So it's not something that it's just, you can just track it. It's going to be different for every single person who tracks it in whatever way they're tracking. And in that moment, in that instance of time, my perception slowed right down. Everything goes, and suddenly it's like all distraction is gone. Nothing else exists. There's only the spot that I can see that is where I'm going to hit the ground and my life is going to end. And my awareness of my present moment and a clear knowing that I have to execute the next movement with precision and authority and calmness and perfectly collected. Like, no, I can't rush this. There's no panic. It just has to be done smoothly, slowly, and perfectly with intention. And I can remember, as I said, I can remember this more than one time. I can remember having another friend looking at me from the ground and me looking back at her and her eyes going, fucking pull, Jay.
Yeah.
And me going, I'm fucking trying.
Yeah.
Hang on, you know? And taking that pose, internal presence and like, exhale to like drop the nervous system stress, even though it's like, it's down to the very last second. It's like, exhale and just slowly put the fingers on the pilot chute handle, and toss it out there into the wind and have 2 seconds under parachute before touching down. And just, I can remember these times. Like there's been a few, you know, I can remember landing and immediately crying, like just feet touch the ground and just, and then the wave of tears just pouring out. Terrified.
That happened to me on a wingsuit. And I'm not a wingsuiter. I have 16 jumps to my name, but that's not a story I wrote down, but it's similar. I had a hard pull, the fabric didn't cover it, but I had a hard pull and I couldn't get my main pilot chute out. And I was also high. So it really wasn't one of those no shit where I was stories. I pulled my reserve, but I just landed and I cried. I was really scared. Really scared.
Yeah. 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 It can be pretty scary.
Wow. I think that's really, really interesting, that place you can access in that time slowing down. If people listening, the book Blink is a really good book by Malcolm Gladwell that talks about in detail this phenomenon of time slowing down and our unconscious and conscious sort of coming together to perform unbelievable things and or not performing in those moments and having unbelievable sort of perceptible failures. It's a very, very interesting book at that phenomenon. But wow. Powerful.
Yeah, I've read that book a couple times. Actually, I read the paper copy and then I got it on Audible and I listened to it again on Audible. And it's received a lot of acclaim for some of the work that it talks about, and it's really true. You know, there's a powerful There's a really powerful experience. I guess it's experience in recognizing how the microcosms of experience, how those little blinks of an eye can change everything, and how important it is to, give them the attention they're due,
Yeah. Yeah. Phew. Well, interestingly, my skydiving story, the one that I wrote first and selected, I think I've briefly shared on the podcast in the past, but I'll share it again because it's relevant to this topic. It is not that level of experience. It's when I was very inexperienced. So it was my fourth jump, and I basically didn't get out of the Cessna with any speed. And so I just the spot was going and going. I was like a mile away. There's no way I would have possibly made it back to the drop zone. I don't know why they let me out. That's a different conversation. But essentially I get out on a static line, my fourth jump. So I'm doing static line progression, which means there's a line attached to the airplane, and it deploys my parachute for me. So anyway, I'm under the parachute, and I realize that I'm going to land off, and I'm not going to land where I was supposed to. The drop zone's too far away. And I realize, and I see this kind of postage stamp sized backyard. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, that's where I'm going to go. It's forest. Like, there's tons of high, super tall forest in this area. So there really aren't that many outs in this area where I was learning. This is my dad's house. And so I go for this postage stamp backyard. I'm coming in.
Where was this?
Upstate New York.
Yeah.
And I'm coming in on what I think is my final approach. And as I'm coming in, I realize I am 100% going to hit power lines. I'm going to absolutely land in those power lines if I don't make a course correction. In skydiving, I'm just saying this for people who are not skydivers that are listening to this. If you one of the ways people can get really hurt is when they turn their parachute too low to the ground without keeping it flat above their head. So there's this thing that happens to young people, young skydivers. They don't know any better, and they'll turn the parachute aggressively toward the ground, trying to avoid an obstacle or something like that. And they will then fly themselves into the ground and hurt themselves or kill themselves. So I am this young jumper at jump 4, and I see these power lines. I'm certain I'm going to hit them, and I do exactly the wrong thing. And I pull my left, I vividly remember it in my mind's eye right now. I can see it still now. I pull my left toggle all the way down, really strong turn. And I don't know what to credit this to other than just my own spatial awareness and my own situational, physical awareness, because typically, and again, people would be like, oh, they would see the ground. So I do this hard turn, and now I see I'm really close to the ground. Oh, fuck. And instead of letting the toggle back up to do a two-handed flare, I, for some reason, had the athleticism or wherewithal or just, I don't know, divine intervention that I knew to just pull the other toggle down and flare, 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 flare. And that's what I did. And it quickly righted the parachute and pulled me underneath it just in time for me to PLF and tumble. And I was completely fine. But those are two big things that easily could have killed me, taken me out at a very, very young age. And only in my growth as a skydiver, as an athlete in that space, understanding the nuances, learning more, growing as a person who does this thing with its vast nuances, did I understand what happened to me then. I didn't have any real idea what happened to me then, and my instructors really didn't know enough to coach me on it. I don't recall getting any coaching on it. And so I tell that story by design to help people, because there's a lot of links in the chain there where I went wrong. I got out too long. I took too long getting out. XYZ, ABC, all the things that are in there.
Yeah. And, interesting. I heard you, as you were telling the story, I was listening. I'm like, I knew what the end of the story is going to be, because you're still here and you're okay.
Right.
And
right.
because what you were just talking about was part of the curriculum that we teach, and the different ways to do turn recoveries. So the one of the things you just stated there was the shortest turn recovery that you can do, which is to bring the other toggle back down. So if you're a skydiver and out there and you want to learn how to do turn recoveries, take a Flight 1 course, because it's in the 101 and 102. Yes. And you will learn how to save your own butt when you screw up, not if you screw up, but when you screw up.
Yes. Correct. Yeah, for sure.
Because we all do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. But yeah, so that just comes to mind as the super key, the main skydiving story to me, where it feels like a no shit there I was scenario.
I have hit power lines 3 times.
You have?
3 times.
What?
Yeah.
Please tell us just even a little bit about that. I want to hear this.
The first time was landing off. Of course, all of these are landing off. So I don't land off. That's one of the things why I've learned to be good at spotting and to understand my wind cones, and because landing off is dangerous. So landing off in Titusville, Florida, with a 92 or 95 square foot Jedi, landing in residential neighborhoods, just littered with wires, nowhere to land, no open spaces. Went through an intersection to try and land in the middle of the street, because that was all I could see, over a house, under a wire, hit the wire with the canopy. It flipped me, laid me on my back, took all the skin off my butt, my hands, and my elbows and everything. And the next time was in Morris, Illinois, landing off, going to land in the back of a farmyard, and again, a power line from a building to a barn, didn't see it, hit it with the canopy, right at canopy height while I was in level flight already. And the last time was the most horrifying, was an intentional high pull. It was the World Free Fall Convention with the PD Factory team, and we were flying katanas, and we were doing if you've been skydiving for 20 years, you would have seen a bunch of katana ads a while back. Mm-hmm. And they were shot during this jump, where we were flying formations and goofing around with groups of a bunch of katanas together. So a bunch of these old pictures that made it in the magazines as advertisements were shot on this jump, and we ended up off, and we chose a schoolyard, big schoolyard, looked really obvious. You could see the power lines all the way around. So like, okay, really cool. There's all the power lines. So they are good. Big open space in the middle. And again, every building typically has a power line that runs to it, and they're generally not underground. And this was the same thing. The main building and the secondary building had a power line that was running between them. And I was cocky and arrogant, and I thought just because I'm landing in a small space doesn't mean I shouldn't do a big turn. And I did like 360s, like a 1080 kind of thing, just revolutions, spinning my way down into this space, attacking it from above. And as I rolled out of the recovery arc and started to come towards level flight, I still hadn't leveled off yet. The power line was probably 15 or 20 feet up, and I saw it, and I realized that it was going to hit me about at my head. And I'm going about 70 miles an hour. And I saw it, and I thought, no, if I hit this, I'm probably going to die. So I tried to go over it by pulling on the rear risers and pulling my knees up. And I put my knees up in front of my chest as high as I could get them. Oh. And I hit the power line right across the front of my shins with both shins. And I had my knees up into my chest, and I tore right through it. I ripped it off the poles. Yeah. So I had, balled up into a little ball. It hit it really, really hard, and it ripped both ends of the power line off the buildings. Wow. And I flew through and landed somehow I landed as if nothing happened. And again, the second I touched the ground, I was just a ball of tears and crying.
Yep. Yep.
And
did you hurt your legs?
Yeah, they were all bloody.
Yeah.
Skinned them. Yeah. Skinned the shins, you know? Yeah.
I think the tears are recognition. It's like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It's like real recognition of you almost, that was legit. You almost are not here anymore in this life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. Well, we could tell a million of those stories. I kind of want to transition to another style of story, if you're up for it.
Yeah, I got so many. Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm like, we could do 18 episodes about this topic. And maybe we can do a follow-on for me interviewing you about your 8 million stories. But yeah, another thing that I wrote down is more personal. It's because it's no shit, there I was. I tried to open my awareness, not my awareness, but my concept of what that meant. And I thought more in the lane of moments in my life that I will not forget. So that it's not just physical stories and, oh my God, I just died, but stories where I'm like, that's burned into my memory forever, you know? And, so, and this isn't really that long of a story per se. It's just a poignant, powerful, important one for me is, so my dad owned a drop zone, and I don't know how many people know that part of my life, but like, my parents were divorced and my dad was an aviator. We had the airport behind his house, the whole thing, but he had a drop zone, and there was a drop zone skydiving, old school OG blue skies, black death culture, party every weekend culture at my dad's house. And so when I went there, I was exposed to all of these, you know, really adult things, and just like, you know, just like any drop zone kid. So that's not really the point of the story. That's just the stage setting for where and how this happened. And what happened is one day I'm at my dad's with my brother. I'm probably 16 years old. I think I was 16. I really don't know. 14 to 16. I think I was 16. And my brother and I are visiting, and my dad basically pulls us aside, and it's a vague collection of the whole memory, but he tells us that we have another brother. He tells us that basically we have a half brother named John. And
really?
Yeah. And then basically John came to the party that night, and I got to meet him. And so I basically found out I have a brother, another brother that I didn't know existed. And then I meet him, and we have this really great night, actually, partying, having a good time. And again, partying, I put that in like air quotes, kind of really, you know, just like the excessive alcohol and nonsense and bonfires and that style of a party. And it was really fun. It was a really, really great time. But it was also one of those things where I was like, whoa, like, really? Like, this is how I find out that I have another sibling, and now he's just jettisoned into our existence. But the beauty of it is that I was really, really glad to know he existed, to know him. And it's been cool over the years. And we haven't necessarily seen each other, cultivated a largely connected relationship, but we've made sure to connect. You know, we've made sure to stay in touch. And what I love about him is that it's really kind of cool for me, because he and I seem quite alike. like we align on a lot of our worldviews, and, you know, he shares podcasts with me and stuff. And I share, like, when I was on Masters of Scale, I found that podcast because of John. I started listening to it, became a mega fan, and then I got the opportunity to be on the show. And I thought, as a fun, like, surprise for my brother, that I would not tell him that I was going to be on the show, and that he would just hear it and be like, whoa. And that is exactly what happened. It was this really special moment. But it's one of those things where I want to, and I'm going to make more of an effort to, you know, see if I can be in his life physically, literally. I don't know what that will look like, but I just love him, you know, even though it's a weird way to be connected in this particular life. And it was a weird moment and a weird way to find that out. There's just, I feel a lot of just so much love in my heart for him, and I feel very connected to him. And so anyway, I just wanted to share that.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Family stories.
I'm basically going to invite myself over to his house and be like, yo, no, I'm really not. What I'm going to do is be like, hey, like, would you mind if I come over? It's okay if not, you know, but if you're up for it, I'd love to just hang out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a half brother and a half sister on either side of my full sibling. And so I can relate. It's interesting how you learn about your family as you go through life.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay on the family theme. I'm going to pivot towards an experience that is really one of the pivotal experiences in my life. It's in my book, so when my book comes out, you'll be able to read about it.
Can't wait. I cannot wait for your book, by the way.
Thank you.
You have to do an Audible version. I'm going to put, that has to happen because you're going to read it. It's going to be totally freaking amazing. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So in 1999, I had kind of reached the bottom of the barrel in my life. I was scratching for anything to hold on to, and I had moved into my van. Oh shit, I live in my van right now. Wait a second. I didn't have any money, and I was in the States, and the team that I was working with had crumbled, and I had taken up a job doing rigging at Vertigo Base Outfitter, and was learning to base jump because I was kind of suicidal. Like I was really, I was like, fuck it, you know, not in a great place. Anyways, Mario, my mentor, who is a wonderful human, I am so blessed to have spent time with him and learned from him. He invited me to come to California with him to go jump El Capitan. And I had never jumped a cliff, and this was going to be our first cliff jumps, which was super exciting because there's no cliffs there's very, very few cliffs in the eastern half of the country. So flying to California to go jump this historical, epic, big cliff. We get out there, we get picked up at the airport by his friend Jeff, and Jeff starts driving us down the coast, and I'm riding in the back of the truck. And I'm kind of just haphazarding through life at this point. I don't really have a plan. I have very little money. I literally sold my reserve out of my skydiving rig to get the money to go on this trip because I knew my reserve was worth about $700. So I'm like, I have 2 rigs. I really only need one to be able to jump. I'll sell the reserve out of this one because it's not great. And I can go base jumping because when you're base jumping, you don't need a reserve.
Yeah.
This was my mentality at the time. So we're rolling down US Highway 1 and we're rolling along, and I saw a sign go by out the window and I recognized it. And this was my first trip to California. I'd never been there before. So why would I recognize the sign? The sign was Point Lobos State Reserve. And I'm like, why do I know this? Like, I've never been here. And I'm scratching my head, and within moments we're pulling over, and we pull over and we're at a overlook next to a big bridge. And this is the bridge that Mario had planned to stop and jump with Jeff. And at the time, it was lower than anything else I'd ever jumped, and I wasn't planning on jumping it. It's 260 feet, and Mario had been mentoring me not to jump below 300 feet for free fall, and I wasn't really interested in doing anything lower than that. It was super duper scary, and then suddenly I put two and two together, and I realized that Point Lobos was the location on my father's death certificate.
Wow.
And I'm going, ooh, I get this like cold, creepy feeling like, how have I ended up here? Like, what in the world has brought me across the country to some place I didn't plan on going to go to the exact spot where my dad died? And mind you, I had lived in Toronto in Canada. And so when I was 9 years old, when my father died and I got this notification about it, it was such a I couldn't even conceive of the place, or is it real? Like, it's like a story, right? It's not a real thing. And so to actually be at the place, and now I'm like, oh, now I get to confront my father's death. And what mindset am I in? I'm on a base jumping trip. So I'm like, and what am I doing? And I immediately tell Mario, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to jump from this. I'm definitely not jumping here. I'm going to hike down. I'll film you guys jumping. I'll hike back up or whatever. I'll support, but I'm not jumping. This is dumb. Like, what kind of a dummy goes and jumps in the same place where his father died? Like, that would be dumb. And I took my camera because I love filming and taking pictures, and I head down the cliff there, and I so close to falling. Oh my gosh, slipped a couple times on the way down, and I did not realize how slippery and how dangerous that particular terrain was. I wasn't familiar with that kind of earth and how different it was from where I grew up and what I was used to. And I had always had a blockage in my mind around the idea of what had happened to my father. Like, had he killed himself? Had he slipped and fallen? What was the scenario? Like, who knows what happened, because he was alone and he fell down one of these ocean cliffs and was found in the ocean. And so I'm going through this emotional experience and then having this physical interaction of slipping on the way down this thing, and got kind of nerved out. I got to the bottom. I filmed Mario do this great jump. He's all ecstatic. He has this beautiful jump, beautiful landing. He's all full of energy. Yeah, after. Yeah. So I filmed him. I let him have his moment. And then on the way back up, we both took slides where we were like, whew, that was really sketchy. We're not going back up that way again. And so we went down the road, maybe, 20 or 30 miles somewhere nearby. There's some big redwood forest, and we found a lovely spot to go pack parachutes. And in that time we went down there, I was just milling about. My head was just spinning. I'm just such a tortured being at this point. Just what am I doing here? And what am I doing with my life? And why am I jumping off of things? And why am I playing a stupid game, pushing my own finality of the, and then at the same time, part of me is like, fuck this. I'm not going to live in fear. I'm not going to be afraid of dying. I'm not going to be afraid of death. Death is not a finality, and maybe we don't have this existence anymore, but I don't believe in the other side and in infinite blackness. So I very pointedly went and got my rig that I had built and got it out of the car and took it and repacked it so that it was packed appropriately for that jump, and told Mario, I'm going to jump. I've made my decision. And repacked my rig so it was set up correctly. And we had the beautiful circumstance. So the universe, thank you, universe, you're amazing. Yeah. Driving back up that road, it was under construction at the time, and they were only having one lane of traffic open going either direction across the bridge. So they have a pilot car, and they had about a 4 or 5 mile stretch of road that was one lane, one direction, and the pilot car would lead. And we were in the line of traffic, and we saw that we were like, oh, maybe we're going to be the last ones in the line, and they're going to close the gate behind us, and the pilot car is going to be way ahead, and we can just slow down and we can just stop in the middle of the bridge. And so we anticipated it It's sunset on the Pacific Coast. I don't know if you've ever been to the Pacific Coast Highway at sunset. It is glorious.
Oh, yes. Glorious.
And I just took on this like manifesting moment and pulled my rig out in the car, like started gearing up in the car and got like fully geared up, getting ready to go so that we could literally just slow down and slow down and slow down and let the pilot car get further and further ahead. So we stopped in the middle of the, just right in the middle of the bridge, jumped out. And I remember how confidently there's a video, I have an old video of just, I actually leapt up onto the railing. Like just like jumped up onto the railing because I was a young gymnast, and athletic. I'm like, fuck fear. This is not my life. And I leapt up onto the railing, and Mario took my pilot chute. It's a pilot chute assist. And I remember just looking out at that sunset and the ocean and being in that infinite connectedness with all that is and getting back to that oneness of self and embracing fear, going straight, not only embracing it, but like running straight towards it with open arms and being like, thank you. And stepping off and just accepting what was coming, and parachute opened perfectly. And I landed on this beautiful beach with these giant breaking waves. And I remember this feeling of freedom. Right?
Beautiful. It brings tears to my eyes if I can go.
Oh my God. It's just like, how does this stuff happen?
Yeah.
How does it happen?
Wow. That is just beautiful, Jay. It's just beautiful. And, there's certainly balancing conversation to any kind of story that we tell that goes well. You'd be like, oh, that could have been when Jay Moledzki went in. This podcast doesn't exist, and that's your life story, and that's very real too. And I love the lesson extracted of running toward fear with open arms, but also now and this sort of is in your first story, as a older, wiser, more experienced, more clear in your values type of person, that it's not a reckless running toward fear with the arms wide open. It's both. It's both, because I think that running toward it with arms wide open is so powerful and so necessary if we want full aliveness, if we want full connection with people, with pursuits, with life. And it is okay to bring our conscious awareness to that as well. So I love it. Oh, just beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's an interesting story to tell. Sometimes it doesn't seem real, and I do reflect on it quite regularly, especially when I find myself at crossroads, and I do that, as you say, like I was very reckless as a younger person, very reckless. I've been reckless with people. I've been reckless with myself. Emotions, love, physical body, money, all that stuff. I've been just reckless with it. And I try not to be that way anymore and be more considerate. And I still remember this thing about fear. It's like, if I let it own me and let it take over and let it become the barrier to all the things that I want to be in my life, and not actually able to live a life that I want to live because I'm afraid of living it, then I'm missing the whole point. And then being too reckless and being too loose is, has an inevitable outcome, is that you're going to pay the price for it. So there's a balance to be struck in that for sure.
One thing you mentioned earlier about not knowing your environment made me think of the glacier. And I know I've told the story, so I don't need to tell it in full again, but where I got my leg stuck in a soft part of a glacier in Iceland, and I really thought absolutely could have died for sure. And it was not necessarily being reckless, because I am not the person who's reckless. I'm not the one who, I don't even base jump. I have no interest. I still have no interest. I am not even the person who goes past the freaking red rope to take a picture closer to the cliff. I don't do that because I respect those spaces. But that lack of preparedness, that lack of understanding of the environment is something that can go into like making these more quote negative no shit there I was experiences happen, right? So like that was a no shit there I was experience for me that really sucked and I wasn't prepared. And then there's another thing I've had on my list that's a no shit there I was experience that theoretically I had nothing to do with, where I was struck by the drunk driver. You know, I was just driving along, you know?
I had a drunk driving story on my list as well.
Yeah. And so it's interesting how these elicit. And then there's another story, and I have a bunch of stories still, but like another story that I think is, I kind of want to briefly share it because it points to a good moment too. I mean, obviously the sex story is a good moment too. but like the moment, and this is, I literally have it. This is so funny. COVID happens and I just happened to be wearing my highlight shirt today. We had already been preparing to do highlight and do all these demonstration jumps in 2020. And it was this amazing life-altering career, professional opportunity and personal opportunity. I'm just thrilled. Then COVID happens and nobody knows what's going to happen. My life coaching clients start to pull back because, you know, who knows how much money anyone's going to have. And this amazing funded project that is growing into what Highlight now is, I was like, is that too going to go away? So am I going to be destitute? Am I going to, you know, all those fears that happened during that time. But the no shit there I was moment was basically on a call with Amy and our lead sponsor. And not only did this person say, we're doing this, we're going to figure it out. I believe in you. I believe in you to helm this, even in these unprecedented times. Not only that, it was also one of those moments where we were valued even more than and I'm a person who advocates for my value financially. So like I was already going into this call feeling ecstatic about what we would be getting financially if the project were to move forward. And even then he gave us a raise, basically. He said, we're going to do it at this rate. And it just blew my freaking head off. I was so grateful. I literally wrote down, I have it. It's a note stuck on my like big note of insights from all my ceremonies. As of today, I truly believe in angels. March 26th, 2020. And it was awesome. This person. And I still feel that way about this person and the immense good that they bring into the world and my life, certainly personally. But that was a really good no shit there I was moment when I think everything in my life is going to crumble and it totally doesn't. And you're rewarded, and not even rewarded by a yes. You're rewarded by a yes and this too.
Interesting. I'm happy for you.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a million things I could share. I have the first time meeting ayahuasca, you know, when I'm vomiting every time I was silent. Like that was also very much a no shit moment. Any other things that you really want to make sure are in this episode?
Well, I had a list of other things, but I just kind of got hit in the heart. Wasn't expecting it when you were talking there. And so I'm finding myself kind of internally reflecting. And I guess it's a pretty good polarization for the story that I previously told. And it wasn't planning on telling it. So I will, because that's vulnerability.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
please.
Being with Jimmy when he went in. And being with this, amazing individual and out in this incredibly beautiful place on this incredibly beautiful day and having such a fantastic time together and really connecting and really like anchoring values and really all the right things in place. And then the universe just like flipping a switch and then just going like just, and then there I am just standing on top of this mountain alone and knowing, and I know I'm alone.
Yeah.
So it's a deep thought.
Yeah. It's a big thought. It's a deep thought. I think it's one we all reckon with at some point in our existences through whatever version of pain we find it. And that is actually a pretty good segue to our intention is to talk about pain in the next episode that we record together. And so stay tuned for more because we could, of course, as always, continue to go on and on. It's very easy for us to share. Thank you, Jay, for sharing everything that you shared. I believe deeply in this space and its value. And everyone listening, thank you for showing up and being here with us and believing in us and supporting us and listening and spending your valuable, valuable time and energy with us. And we only hope that what we are sharing is in fact of value to you. And so, you don't need to do anything about that except accept and enjoy and live the value that you get from this. If you want to share and do all the things that we say at the beginning, do it. That's great, but feel no pressure to do any of those things. Yeah.
I want to send some gratitude out to all the people who have reached out to me in recent time. Over the last few months, I've had a lot of contact from people direct messaging me and just letting me know how they felt about some of the things that we've talked about or where they're at in their lives. And that communication has been really appreciated, valued, honored, accepted. Thank you. I haven't always been in the place to receive it as well. And other times it's been really, easy to engage. It's been great. Everything from really fun conversations to really deep conversations. And I've got one coming up this afternoon. I got a friend who reached out who said, I need to talk. Let's talk. So I'm looking forward to more of those conscious connections.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. And more walking each other home, family. We say it all the time. We love you so much. Thank you. Jay and I are I just feel like the show is in a new phase. I'm super thrilled for the next episodes of Walking Each Other Home, Conscious Connections. I'm thrilled to have Nicole Smith-Ludwig is our next guest on Conscious Connections. She's coming up very soon. Actually, I think she'll be published right before this, so I take it back. You've already heard her. But either way, we're just grateful to everyone being here. And again, if you want to support on Patreon, it really does make a difference. Go to trustthejourney.today, click on the Patreon button. And again, $1 a month, whatever, anything makes a difference and grows our impact. And we'll get you into the family, the Trust the Journey family Facebook group. And we welcome you there and we love you. And keep sending the topic ideas. I feel like this was an amazing topic and I loved this. So keep them coming, fam.
Thank you, Eli.
Yeah.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye.